Hi, welcome back to another JNCIESP video. We're going to be trying to get a L3 VPN to work so that we can build Ethernet CFM over it and test the links. So our topology right now is pretty complicated because we're studying aggregated Ethernet links. So we've got two of those going from router 2 to router 3. Last video, there was an issue with LACP. Whenever I enabled it, the link state was stuck in down. But whenever I removed it, it was able to come up. So unfortunately, we won't be able to look at LACP. It's, I think, a pretty simple thing. It's just, if they want LACP on the test, you just enable it and you can use active on both sides. If they say something about they only want it to send out LACP from one side, you can set the other side to passive, or since it's the default value, just not specify whether it's active or passive. All right, so we're having trouble with the loopback address of R1, making it over to the routing table in R3. We saw that the IGP, which in this case it's going to be ISIS, I believe. Yep, we saw that the IGP is up, but for some reason we're not able to get the route from router 1. One thing I did notice, one thing that might seem confusing is that there is OSPF in the L3 VPN, but this is just to accept traffic from the CE routers. So it's not going to be a problem. We do have ISIS enabled as well, but that is for the service provider traffic. So, yep, we've got no route to the host. Oh, well, this is for the CE neighbors. Yeah, and this is really, well, I guess I kind of am confused what this OSPF is for. I thought it was for the C neighbors, but my understanding is you don't need two protocols. You only need BGP or OSPF. So I don't know why they have two different protocols here. We can probably get rid of one of them. We definitely need to figure out why the BGP neighborship between R1 and R3 cannot come up. And we do have neighborships that are established here. I believe these are the neighborships between the Ciscos. And this is what I mean when I believe that you don't need two routing protocols between the PE and the CE. So we've got so we've got 1.2, so this is 2.2. Yep, perfect. So this is between the CE and the PE. So let's do something similar on the router 3, and let's actually go and clean up router 1, because we're not going to need two different protocols to connect the CE to the PE. That's what, when you add a protocol under the routing instance, basically all it's meant to do is connect the CE to the PE. So we can either use a external BGP neighborship and then have the CE inject routes into our VPN. Remember, this is a layer 3 VPN. Kind of more, the experience I have in the real world is more with layer 2 VPNs. But here, this is a layer 3 VPN. So we do need a, of course, layer 3 routing protocol, but we only need one. Okay, so this is completely unnecessary configuration. So I'm just going to remove it for the sake of simplicity. There's no reason in having a configuration on there that you're not going to use. There's a really, really good concept I like called Premature Optimization. So let's look that up. So the first thing is wiki.c2. And I'm not sure what this is, but yeah, so programmers waste enormous amounts of time thinking about or worrying about the speed of non-critical parts of their programs. And these attempts at efficiency actually have a strong negative impact when debugging and maintenance are considered. We should forget about small inefficiencies, say about 97% of the time. Premature optimization is the root of all evil, yet we should not pass up our opportunities in that critical 3%. Yeah. So there's this really good Yagni. I really like the Yagni, and it's you ain't gonna need it, or you aren't gonna need it. So anything you don't need, of course, spending time on that is really kind of shooting your project in the foot. You got a deadline. You got to get things done. You've got to have things work that need to work. So you ain't going to need it, and you spend all your time and energy on it. It's really not going to get you anywhere. I mean, let's say you've got to feed your family. So that classic scene from the movie Dumb and Dumber where they're starving and they're broke and they've only got a few bucks, and he says to Floyd, now make sure you pick up only the essentials. So then he comes back in a cowboy hat and pinwheels and just only like 3 cartons of beer, and that's all he bought. So that's obviously, they're not going to really need those pinwheels and cowboy hats. It's just, he's really breaking the Yagni guideline. If he had bought kind of non-perishable food that they could carry with them, they would have, I think, had to take far fewer breaks and could have made it to their destination in a much more efficient manner. All right. So yeah, this is like a really good thing to read. I'm not going to read this whole thing, but I'm glad it showed me the Yagni, because I think that's a really good acronym to be familiar with. You ain't going to need it. If you don't need it, if you're not going to need it, why spend time on it? So, okay. So let's continue to, okay, so we cleaned up the unnecessary config on router 1. Let's do that same thing on router 3, and then let's get those BGP neighborships to come up to the Cisco routers. All right, so it's time for the neighborships. All right, and this is connected. See, I wish I could enable LLDP. This is definitely what I would do in production, but this is unfortunately lab where it does not have the capability for LLDP. But we can just see from our port labeling here that it's going to be GE0 on RE3. So that means that R4, the Cisco is going to get 9.2. Okay, so now let's see if it can ping across the wire. Oops, it can ping itself. Sometimes I like to do that because you never know if there's, like, if you forgot to no shut the interface and you ping yourself, you could tell right away that you forgot to do that. So sometimes I like to start by pinging myself. And look at this, we get this really nice message. I received a address in the ARPS. It was sourced by this MAC address, which is the MAC address of the Juniper, and it too has the address that you assigned. So of course that's not going to work. So let's give that the address it was meant to have. Okay, so now we've got an address that is going to work. So we're going to be able to ping both addresses. So I'll ping myself first because, as I said, that's a great way to tell if you forgot to shut down the router, something like that. It's usually, will save you time later on if you ping yourself first. And I'm pinging across the wire, so everything looks good. So the next step is to enable BGP. And the autonomous system number we'll be able to tell from the BGP configuration here. All right, so yep, it's going to be 100. Go away, floating panel. There we go. Now go away, escape message that says press escape. And don't come back when I try to use vi. Okay, so 100. Perfect. So now the neighbor address, 120.168.9.1. So when you do an eBGP session, you typically use the address directly across the link like that. But of course, you can use one that's more than a hop away. You've just got to enable the multi-hop knob. Okay, so I'm not sure what the AS is. I think it's 55, but I will double check. Yep, 55. Oops. Oh, and it's going to be remote. It's a little bit of a different command across vendors. Okay, so that should bring up the connection. Might take a little bit of time, but hopefully that connection comes up. Yep, I don't think we're missing anything. We've got the correct addresses configured. Yep, so it comes right up, perfect. Now let's configure router 5. So this is going to be address 120.168.10.2. Okay, and then let's just do router BGP 100 right away and set the neighbor address. Okay, and now hopefully we'll see that come up. We don't need to take it piece by piece because we've got the full manner in which to do it still in our muscle memory. So we're in connect, open sent, establish, skip over, open confirm, but that is typical. Perfect. So now let's try to do the hard part, and that's going to be figuring out why this here is not coming up. So let's start with router 1, and let's verify that that is a direct route in the table. And it is via loopback 00. So let's see if it's getting across to router 2. Yep, it's being learned from router 1 through as an ISIS route. So let's go to router 3 and verify that it is in fact not getting there. Okay, so sure enough, it's not there. Let's see if it shows up as a hidden route. And it does not. So we need to figure out why that route does not make it from router 2 to router 3, even though it makes it from router 1 to router 2. So let's do a show ISIS adjacency. And yep, the adjacency's up. So we've got an adjacency with this system. So let's make sure that, well, it's going to be right because otherwise it wouldn't be up. Let's just look at the configuration of ISIS on both routers. Yep, so that looks good. We've got the AE interfaces in there. So, yep, and we've got a ISIS route in there. Okay, yeah, so really not sure what's going on. In the initial example, they had level 1 disable applied to ISAS. So I think I'm going to try adding that in there and seeing if that makes a difference. Okay, so it did not make a difference at all. All right, I'm going to take I'm going to pause the video and take a quick break. I might be back for a few more minutes. All right, so I'm back with plenty of time to continue on. I am noticing that my pop out is not showing up with my face on it. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but typically I do have that, so I guess it's kind of throwing me for a loop that it's not there. So let me check my video settings here and figure out why that isn't showing up. Okay, so yeah, I'm not sure where that went. I don't think it's super important in this video to have it. It's more important that you can see what's on my screen, but just the fact that it behaves differently without me toggling any settings is kind of concerning. But we will continue on to try to figure out why this route is not exchanged between router 2 and router 3. So let's just see if we can get some clues from ISIS output. Another thing we can do that I think might be really useful is add some trace options to ISIS. So let's do ISIS statistics. ISIS overview. So it's a level 2 interface because level 1 is disabled. Level 2 DR is itself. And level 2, level 1 metric is 10. So yeah, I guess I'm not sure what's going on, but let's continue to look at those ISIS commands. So now we get to see the ISIS routing table. This is going to be the main command we're going to need to use. Yep, and we can see in the ISIS routing table, we're not even getting the route there. These controls popped up again. All right, so we've got this. And then that made it into the routing table. But the route did not make it onto router 3. Oh, and we can see that router 3 didn't make it into the link state database. So that's definitely going to be an issue. And I would be willing to bet that router 1 and 2 are not in the database here on router 3. Yep, so it's maintaining its own database, and router 3 is left out from the databases of 1 and 2, and 1 and 2 are left out from the databases of router 3. So I noticed that we've got an ID here, and the ID is 0. So, but that's just for the routers. So let's do a show configuration, put display set, but no more. And then we're going to try to figure out why it's not including router 3 in the database. Okay, so I'm not sure what this means. If it's in secure context, I guess I'm not sure what secure context is, but that could be the problem. So let's add that command on there, because maybe it was in secure context and it requires this command here. The command write here. So let's add that to router 2 and router 3, and if it's enabled, then we know that it was in secure context, and we can read more about what that means. Okay, well. So we don't have that as an option here. So I don't think that's going to be related to the issue. And then just a reminder that the ISIS connection between R1 and R2 is happening without any problems. Yeah, so I'm really not sure what this traffic engineering family INET shortcuts is. but I'm sure it's just an optimization. It doesn't depend whether or not the adjacencies come up. Well, the adjacencies are up, but the route isn't being exchanged. So that could be the problem, but I'm pretty sure I actually don't have that configured right now. And I'm not sure that it's a problem. It would be the problem that it's not configured. I think the problem would be that it were configured, but weeding out the route. So we got level 1 disable still enabled on the routers. Let's just remove that to make things a little easier. All right, and we've got to figure out why, if I do a show ISIS database on router 2, it does not include routers 1 and 2. And if I do a show ISIS database on either router 1 or 2, it does not include router 3. Kind of makes me wonder if ISIS requires a full mesh, but I don't think it does. I thought that was just BGP, but that would of course explain the issue. I guess it wouldn't explain why there wasn't a connection between 2 and 3 because those are in a full mesh. I like that a lot better, how it looks like they used the MAC address of the loopback interface for the family ISO address. I like that a lot better because it's the same number of bits in that field. Yeah, so we can see ISIS is a very complicated topic. You'll generally not learn about it until you're doing an expert level exam. So my idea of just kind of using it casually without having gone through the topic first might not be the best idea. But I did get quite a bit of exposure to it in the JNCI SP. I learned about the PSNP, the CSNP, the levels, all that sort of stuff. Yep, so PSNP, CSNP, link state PDUs. Yep, I learned about all that. Had to answer some questions relating to ISIS. Learned about the overload bit and the attached bit. So yeah, I guess I don't understand why. So this is a really nice explanation. I really like how in-depth this is. This is going to be pretty much essential for when I actually tackle this topic. Okay, so this is the only matches we've got. Yep, so we do need to still figure out why the database doesn't include everything, doesn't include router 3. So this should look pretty familiar to anyone familiar with OSPF. The main difference between OSPF and ISIS is that OSPF exchanges IP routes, INET routes, but ISIS exchanges special ISO addresses. And when exchange, I mean the fabric of the actual routing protocol itself. Of course, it exchanges routes. That's what it's meant to do. It's a dynamic routing protocol. But it does not in any way rely upon INET. If it's ISIS, it relies upon those ISO NET identifiers, network entity title identifiers that were configured on the loopback interfaces. That's how it forms adjacencies. That's how it sends out control information. Yes, it does exchange routes, but it does it through a system that does not require IPv4 or IPv6 as is required in OSPF. So this is a big advantage because there's more devices that can support those ISO capabilities than there are that can support IP Internet Protocol capabilities, like ATM interfaces, or yeah. So it's more of like an old school thing. It's meant for a wider degree of compatibility. So service providers, where you never know what you're going to be dealing with. It's not necessarily the latest and greatest in the service provider. It's just whatever you can use to reach the farthest stretches of the country. ISIS is going to be your best bet, so that you're not going to have the same kinds of compatibility issues you would with OSPF in some cases. Another big advantage to IS over OSPF, as I understand it, is it's a lot more configurable. You can make a lot more fine-tuned adjustments with ISIS than you can with OSPF. And of course, the biggest advantage of ISIS over OSPF version 2 is, as I said, ISIS is not dependent on IP addressing at all. So if you're converting your network from, if you want to start serving IPv6 routes over your network, you're going to have to upgrade your entire IGP from OSPF version 2 to OSPF version 3. Whereas if you were running ISIS, you're not going to need to change that at all. All right, so we've got different attributes, it looks like. Let's see here, show ISIS database. No, we got the same attributes. I guess I'm just trying to figure out what the difference is between this LSP between the other LSPs. Let's look at the detailed output. Yeah, the strangest thing, in my opinion, is that we do have a valid adjacency between router 2 and router 3. We're just not exchanging any information. So let's look at the extensive. Oops, let's clear off the scroll back buffer. I wish there was a way you could have it scroll back the buffer down so that the CLI here was just pinned at the top, and then when I hit enter, instead of it remaining at the bottom and then everything, so if I do a show, let's say I do a show int terse byte match ge dash. So now when I hit the enter key, it goes up this way and then disappears. I wish there was a way where I can have it go down that way and then disappear, because for me, generally, I have the top of my screen more positioned, especially with a laptop, more positioned downward, and kind of craning my neck downward is, for me, not as comfortable as looking more straight. So I wish I could figure that out. I really wish I could figure that out. But unfortunately, I cannot. I'm going to be stopping the video now and coming back to this over lunch. Unfortunately, this might be something I have to move on from. It's just a bit much. What I can do, if I can't get this up, is just strip it down to just a connection, really simple point-to-point connection. The purpose of this was to learn about aggregated Ethernet links, which I'm pretty comfortable with. I don't think it's going to be a huge problem. There's just a bunch of different knobs, so I can just try enabling, disabling those knobs. I can always read the help, so help, reference, and then interface. Yeah, interface aggregated Ethernet options. There we go. And I've got all the syntax. So all the things I can do just right there. And then I believe if I do a help topic, there we go. So now I can get a lot of good information this way. So I think the best way to figure out what information is available to you is to use the help apropos and do a regular expression to find what you're looking for. And now you get both help topic and help reference, just whatever help is available for the topic you want to find. That is the help that you receive when you do help apropos. It's not limited to help topic or help reference. Aha, but topic, this is where you get more of the written explanation. Reference, you just get a reference as to what config you can apply and what all the knobs are. If you want to learn what the knobs mean, you're going to need to use help topic. So yep, you can see here I've got the full help page. Yeah. All right, well, I'm going to have to cut the video short here. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one, where I maybe spend a little bit more time trying to get this to work, but I think I'm going to need to, especially if I spend another video on this later today. I'm going to need to cut it short and do some OAM setup and move on to the next topic. So thanks for watching. See you in the next video.